Welcome to the Upside Down Influencer podcast, where we talk about things we see on social media and ultimately how we, as Christ followers, can do it differently. I'm your host, Jessica Johnson, and I'm so excited to kick off this very first episode with a powerful conversation. Today, I'm joined by Camille Murphy, a certified personal trainer and founder of 139 Wellness. Her nonprofit serves those who are struggling with food, body image, and exercise, helping them recover their true identities in Christ. We're diving into what it looks like to share fitness content as a believer. What should we consider when posting? How do we navigate topics like modesty, body image, and even viral trends like what I eat in a day? Should Christ followers engage with these trends at all? And if so, how can we approach them in a way that honors God? Camille is also actively in eating disorder recovery, and we'll be discussing sensitive topics around food, body image, and exercise. If these conversations might be triggering for you, please use discretion when listening. I truly believe you'll be encouraged by Camille's wisdom and grace in these conversations. So let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Camille Murphy. Camille.
Hey.
Welcome to the Upside Down Influencer podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So if you don't mind, could you tell us a little bit about your story? And we'll go from there.
Sure. So present day, I'm married to my best friend, John, and we have 4 kids. Addie is 9, Titus is 8, Joy is 5. No, she's 6. Joy is 6 now, and Micah is 2. A longer story would be that I never imagined this would be my life. I didn't think I'd ever be able to get married or have children. That's a story for another time, but I'm very, very grateful that is the life that God has given me. But specifically, kind of going back, what's led me to this point in being in the fitness industry, I experienced some pretty severe trauma as a child, starting around age 8. And around that time, food was really one of the main comforts that I found. It just made me feel better when different things were happening to me and I didn't feel safe. And I didn't realize it, but I actually began having an eating disorder around age 8. I wouldn't have been able to call it that, of course, because who knows? But it would have been categorized as bulimia. And throughout the course of my life up until the end of college, I really swung on the pendulum of eating disordered behavior, sometimes going towards the anorexic side, sometimes going towards compulsive overeating, a lot of times landing in the bulimic area, but it was always a part of my journey. At 14, I surrendered my life to Jesus. A girl from school invited me to her youth group, and I went for all the wrong reasons, like foosball and cute boys or whatever, and pizza,
You got there, though.
She got me there.
Yes.
And I heard about Jesus and how much he loved me, and that's when my life changed forever. I went from death to life, but I still struggled and was sinning very deeply and hurting very deeply in that eating disorder behavior. So it that along with compulsive exercising. I was an athlete, played lots of sports in high school, and still was compulsive exercising on the side of that. It was never enough. And so
would you compulsive exercise and struggle with the eating disorder at the same time?
Yeah, yes. And they're kind of a lot of times intertwined, not always, but specifically with like bulimia and anorexia, it can be a form of purging through exercise. And I think that's something in the fitness industry I see running like rampant. It's everywhere, and it can be easy to ignore because it can be praised. Like, wow, you're getting in such great shape, but you don't
look good, girl.
Yeah, keep it up, sis. But you don't know my heart. You don't know what I'm actually serving and what I'm actually doing, because like I'm worshiping this thing.
Yeah.
And it led me to a really, really dark place, really dark. So, Yeah.
And where would you say, if this is okay for me to ask,
Sure.
where would you say you are now in terms of like your mental health part of it?
So around, what was during my senior year of college, I had some friends who were very loving and bold and said, hey, like, we're worried about you. Like, we see something going on in your life that is it healthy? And they were talking about my eating behaviors and my exercise. And that's really when I started eating disorder recovery. Started seeing a registered dietitian. I started seeing a Christian counselor, and my life began to slowly change. Jesus was healing me, but through that, and that again, that was right around, I've probably been a trainer for about 12 years. So that's been about 13 years that I've been in eating disorder recovery. And that eating disorder recovery and working through that really on a daily basis is what's gotten me to this point to where I can say, I still struggle. I feel like the eating disorder is like a thorn in my side that, I don't think when Paul was talking about a thorn in his side, he specifically meant bulimia.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We're at my house. For context, we are in my dining room, and my dog is hiding behind a sound curtain. So
He's so cute, though.
I don't know what happened back there, but something just...
living his best life.
Something just happened.
I don't think Paul necessarily meant that bulimia was the thorn in his side, but I do feel like for now it's mine. It's something I'm not active in, but the temptation's there.
Right.
So I have to fight it every day. It's an ongoing battle for me.
How do you balance being a person of faith in a social media world that so much praises? Oh, you look, like you had said, you look good, girl. Keep it up. It's just a lot of appearance-related compliments,
That's right. Yeah.
and that's hard. And I personally struggle in this area, even as somebody that's not a fitness influencer or anything, because as horrible as this sounds, like it works, right? Like I know that if I just put on a cute outfit and I almost stage a moment that I'm going to get compliments.
Sure.
And it's just so common.
It is so common.
And so how would you say that as a person that's in the fitness world, that how do you live in that tension?
It's a really hard tension to live in. I think that the biggest way to combat that desire for man's approval and for all the likes and all the follows, and those things aren't inherently bad, but God looks at our heart. 1 Samuel talks about, people look at the outward appearance, but God looks at our hearts, and it's really like your motives in really posting certain things or taking certain pictures maybe to post, like, are you doing it to uplift and encourage? And that can be applied to the fitness world. Like, are you posting this video of you doing certain exercises because you maybe want to teach someone how to do them, which is awesome. You maybe want to encourage someone who feels like they can't do it, or uplift somebody. Like, those are really great desires. Or a lot of us struggle, me included, like, do you want people to think that you are good at your job, for instance, or that you are acceptable, you're lovable, and it's like the heart of it, like, what are your motives? And then shifting, like, okay, well, I want to honor the Lord with my social media. As a believer, ultimately, whether you're in the fitness realm or like even a different realm, like with your just posting about your family, like, am I using this to honor the Lord or to bring myself glory? And that is a really hard tension as a human being.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Social media makes you want to be self-centered. That's kind of, it's like, our pastor jokes about selfies all the time, and like, that's real. Like, and I love selfies. Like, I'm not knocking selfies, but like, that tension is so real to try to combat and fight against. And so being grounded in the word and prayer and just community, I think, are really the main ways that you can fight it, but it's hard.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, how would somebody know if their motives are pure? What do you do, rather?
Well, first off, being in eating disorder recovery, pictures are usually not my friend. If I take pictures, I normally don't look at them for like 24 hours or 12 hours.
Take a picture of yourself?
Of myself, yeah. And even videos.
So you're saying you take a picture and then you wait 24 hours to look at it?
Yes.
That's so smart, though.
Well, it depends on, especially if my mindset's really unhealthy, because I can be really mean to myself. And
aren't we all?
Yeah, and I think that that's perpetuated, though, mainly by social media, because I want to look a certain way so that people think that I am, acceptable.
They think I am that.
Yeah, I am acceptable, lovable, beautiful in their eyes, whatever. And it's like, if I wasn't desiring those things and it was just a picture of me and my family, I'd probably just be happy that I had that memory,
I know.
But it's
and
so hard.
hindsight is just 2022. Like you look back on certain photos of yourself and realize that you were harsh.
So harsh. Yeah, and it didn't even
I think
make
about
sense.
all the time now, like the fact that, I did have a child. You had a child, and though yes, it does. For me, it did change my body.
Absolutely, me too. Yeah,
and
for sure.
I look back at old images of myself that I hated.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I have much kinder eyes.
Yes.
For that girl.
And it breaks your heart, really. You want to go give her a hug because you're like,
yes.
Man, and to celebrate, like, look at what your body did.
Right.
Your body carried this beautiful baby boy and brought him into the world. Like, God used you as a vessel. Like, it's amazing. But social media, and especially in the industry that I am a part of, and I'm responsible for this too, it's like we perpetuate this, like, are you bouncing back fast enough? Are you, being like this, superstar mom that works out every day all the time, but also is the best, mom to her baby? And like, there's like this serious, like, that's tension, I feel.
I won't lie that I struggled with that too. And
me too.
Because I wanted to lose weight. I mean, I gained a significant amount of weight
as you should.
With my pregnancy.
Usually it's very encouraged to be doing that. So
I mean, I think I stopped, not that the scale matters, but I remember the number that I stopped looking at the scale because I was like, I don't want to know. But I can tell you that I gained at least, it was close to 50 pounds.
Yeah, sure.
More.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like coming off.
No.
And so I did want to lose the weight, and I wanted to be able to say that I wanted to lose the weight. It was so weird because social media both has this side that's like, you should only want to lose the weight for health. And so if you care about aesthetics at all, that's bad. But then you also have this other side that praises aesthetics.
It's very hard.
And so I never knew when I was trying to be authentic on my fitness journey how to not come off as superficial. I'm like, well, maybe I am being superficial. Am I trying to lose weight for the wrong reasons?
Yeah.
What's my point in sharing this?
I get that.
How would you advise?
Yeah, and it's hard. So I see things from, being in the eating disorder recovery community, I kind of see it from that lens. And as far as, there are people who severely struggle with life-threatening mental illnesses based off of wanting to lose weight, right? So there is this group of people, me included, that have at one point deeply struggled with an eating disorder or are still. And they are on social media, and a lot of them are believers, right? And so my point in saying that is, when posting something maybe about your postpartum journey, you want to be aware of, not wanting to cause your brother or sister to stumble. I think that might be in Romans, but I'm not, don't quote me on that. But, and, you pray about it, you think through that and think, okay, could this potentially be harmful to somebody that is going to read what I wrote or watch my video or whatever. Now, you can't tiptoe through life all the time, right? Like you want to love well, you want to serve well, and really the best thing to do is to pray over it. And you can even ask somebody like, that you trust really well, like, does this come off a certain way? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, I think staying away from numbers is really good. Like, I think numbers can be really triggering for people because it naturally, and you and I can, I think, attest this, like, if somebody posts a number and they think that they are very heavy at that number, if we are more than that number,
so true,
we feel shame. But if we are less than that number, we feel pride, like, oh, well, look, I'm more fit than her. And either one is sinful, right? Like, shame's tricky because I don't want to necessarily put that in the sin category, but it can lead to a lot of temptations to sin when you feel shame, right? But like when you feel pride, that also, like, that's yucky. And I think all of us have felt pride in a lot of areas when being on social media and comparing ourselves to others.
And even comparing ourselves to ourselves.
Ooh.
You know, I had a doctor's appointment this morning.
Oh, okay.
And they have you step on the scale.
Yeah.
And I was feeling a little insecure. Yeah. And I wasn't a big scale person before. I had to lose weight. But now I'm working with myself to try to fix some of these things. But, you know, I stepped on the scale today and I had a hoodie on and I had heavy shoes and I had, you know, and I saw the number and I had put back on some of the weight that I had lost. And my body, it's interesting because my body composition after having a kid has also changed. Like, even though my weight is actually similar to where it was pre-baby.
Yes.
I'm definitely hold fat in places I didn't before.
Yeah.
Same. So my point is I tend to compare myself now to my past self.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, like, the number, it's, you know, I'll get in my head about that number because I'm like, but even though I technically weigh the same, I don't know,
it's so hard.
It gets me all,
and I
never used to be that way.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm having to learn. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't define you.
No.
And I feel like that is something that the fitness industry as a whole, like in the world, teaches, that it does define you. And you are what you weigh and you are what you look like. You are. And so, like, for me, I really believe that God gave us the gift of fitness. I think that is a good gift from God. And I think that he loves when we're able to move our bodies for his glory. Like, I really believe that. But Satan twists things just a little. Same with our weight and our body image and all of that. Like, just a little, like, well, are you sure you're really nourishing your body with food? You know, maybe you should skip a meal. Or are you sure you're really working out hard? Like, maybe you should up it more and do, like, more, you know, hours and hours of working out, like, and neglect your family. You know, I mean, that's where a lot of eating disordered behavior is born, is in those moments of, like, I'm not worthy because of X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's my weight. Maybe it's how I feel like I'm being perceived in my appearance, or, you know, those types of things that can lead to really dangerous, not saying for you, but it can lead to behaviors that become obsessive.
Yeah.
And it's so easy for anyone to fall into that, not just people who are like, you know, say they have a problem. It's like, I think a lot of people can be tempted by that.
And the pendulum can swing on the other end, because not only can the enemy be like, oh, you need to lose weight, you can also get the opposite that's like, oh, you need to love yourself more.
Yeah,
and so you also see the other side where it might praise obesity.
Yeah.
But call it self-love.
It's hard.
And so that's also not loving the body that God calls us to take care of.
And that's a really hard one, you know. If I had a registered dietitian friend, I'd probably pass that one off because it's a little out of my scope of practice.
Yeah.
But I will say, just personally, like, the way that I would teach that is our bodies have happy weights. Like, when we are not under eating or overeating, and we're not under exercising or over exercising. Our bodies in different seasons of life have very happy weights they like to be at, where you don't gain drastically and you don't lose drastically. But that comes from like a stability in eating and movement and resting and all those things. And so, like you said, like somebody may be on one side of the pendulum, but someone may be way over here. And I think God's plan for us is to be in this middle ground that is so hard to, it seems, to get to because of diet culture and all the things.
Like, how do you ever know when you're in the middle ground? It's tough. Well, that brings me to another question. One of those trends that I see in like the fitness and food world is what I eat in a day.
Yeah.
I've participated in it. And not that it's wrong, okay? No. And so that's my whole thing is like, you know, there are going to be these trends that occur. And one, I want to hear your opinion on what you think of trends like what I eat in a day. Yeah. It's very common. It's a very common thing for influencers to post.
Yes.
And then if we are going to participate in it, what's the best way as a believer that we can approach these things?
I love that. Yeah. And like you said, anything that I say is not to condemn. I don't want to condemn anyone. If you have done that, it's not like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you did that. Like, I am so imperfect. Like, I'll just go first and say, like, I've done a lot of, like, almost all these things wrong. So let's just start that. But like, from this point forward,
even certain things aren't necessarily, you know, like
inherently evil.
No,
exactly.
Like what I eat in a day could be really helpful for someone like me who has PCOS, right?
Yes,
I'm learning, that would be good. But again, context matters. How we go about it matters. And I would just love to hear from somebody who has your story.
Yeah.
You know, how should we be approaching these things as believers?
Sure. As a receiver of what I eat in a day, for instance, like if I'm on Instagram and I see that and I click on it, the biggest thing and warning I would give to somebody as a follower of Jesus, and maybe you don't know him yet, is just because you eat what that person eats in a day does not mean you're going to look like that person. And I think that's the lie. I think that's the catch. I think that's why it's so, you know, it's like, oh, if I eat exactly how she eats, and I used to do this all the time. If I eat just like she eats, she just needs to write out a list for me, and then my body's going to look just like hers in 2 weeks. Like, it'll be great. And that's not true necessarily. You could have a very different body shape. Like, God has knit each of us together in our mother's wombs, and we are not all the same. Now, we're all made in his image, but we are not all the same, and our bodies all have different ailments. They have different, like, hopefully not, but like diseases, like,
it's so true.
But what you're seeing, you're like, if I eat her protein powder, if I eat her overnight oats, if I eat I'm gonna have her abs. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing to have a goal,
right?
But you don't need to look like someone else for any reason, right? You can admire someone and be like, wow, I love her work ethic. I love how she makes her meals and all that. But there's a fine line between comparing to that person and, again, feeling shame or, you know, idolizing that person. And that's very tempting too. So as a receiver of what I eat in a day, those would be my warnings. As a poster, if you really feel led to post it, I can see the benefits for specific seasons and all that, but I see them doing a lot of harm for people who deeply struggle in these areas. If you feel led to do it, say like you're training for a marathon and you're like, hey, I'm training for a marathon and like this is what I'm eating in a day. If you feel led to do that because you feel like it's really going to encourage somebody, I would just make sure first off that you're eating enough. You don't want someone to copy you and be under eating.
Oh, yeah, because you could possibly hurt them.
Correct. But that's something I think, you know, and also maybe even putting a disclaimer like, if you have a different body type than me, like I am not a medical doctor. I am not a registered dietitian. This is not like That's why I think it's really tricky.
Good.
But at the same time, I really love the idea of sharing recipes and meals like as individual ideas.
Yeah.
Maybe more so than what I eat in a day. You say, hey, I love this dinner idea. I make it for my husband and my son, and it is so good. You guys have to try it. And it's a really well-balanced meal that like would really be nourishing for people because you're trying to encourage them. You're trying to uplift them.
That's good.
Does that make sense? It's like shifting it a little bit.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of sharing individual meals like that.
Yeah.
Because the other part is that unless you really know that person,
Yes.
you don't know if they're actually eating that way. And as
That's
somebody
true.
who's created content myself, I'm not saying that they're lying. I'm just saying that might not be what they eat every day, like breakfast,
Yes.
lunch, and dinner. They might eat something like that one day, and then the lunch might be different at another day. Like, it doesn't mean they recorded all of that actually in the same day.
And that's so true.
You know?
Social media I love it too. I think that it's a great way to share the gospel. I think it's a great way to reach people who maybe you would never be able to reach. I think that God has given it to us as a gift itself.
Yeah.
But yes, it's not always authentic. What you're seeing is not really what you're getting always.
Yeah.
And that can be really painful for some. Like if they really, for instance, idolize a trainer or an influencer for fitness purposes. I mean, I just had a client who was buying stuff from this girl's influencer page, and then someone found out she was posting pictures from 5 years ago. And it was just, and that's not to shame that influencer. It just, she felt so betrayed.
And you just never, like, I agree. It's not to shame the influencer because for all we know, maybe she just didn't have updated headshots.
Who knows?
But the point is,
right.
they weren't up to date.
And she was saying they were current.
Oh.
Yeah. And it just
different.
really, now I don't think that person necessarily like shares about Jesus or anything like that, but I think that like the betrayal, because my friend really felt like that was like her genuine life, like it was her authentic self. And so I think just kind of cautioning, like, just because you're seeing something, it's cool to admire it and maybe get some tips, but I would be really careful unless you like know the person, and it could just be really hard. So yeah.
Another element, if you're open to talking about this, but we live in this world that you can post a certain angle and say it's educational, but actually be trying to receive some sort of affirmation. How do you manage that tension? Because you're very pretty.
That's sweet.
You are.
Thanks, Jessica. So are you. Thank you.
Thanks. But no, it's true. And if you wanted to, you could post a suggestive angle and say, "Here's
squatting.
This is my booty.
Hello, booty
workout,"
build. Yes.
And again, that's not to shame anybody
No.
who does do it that way, but it's just a reality of the world that we live in, and we are called to do things differently.
Yes.
And fitness is a little gray sometimes when it comes to stuff, and especially sometimes I feel like men have it a little bit easier because it's like they're probably not thinking about like, well, if I just like sit a little bit differently, or this might look too sexual or whatever.
Correct.
And so how do you do it? Like,
You just,
what do you think?
Man, and I'm not perfect in this area and would never want anyone to feel condemned by anything I say because that is not my hope. My hope is to encourage.
And we don't want to hypersexualize ourselves either.
Correct. I think like in regards to modesty and things, it's really hard. I think like over the past 10 years, we've gotten more and more, I guess, free as women, and like kind of feeling like more confident in how we dress in the gym and like to run and all that. And I think a lot of times, like we live in Florida, it's super hot. So like if you're running outside, like I get it. But at the same time, again, it's going back to that scripture, which I think is in Romans, about not wanting to cause someone to stumble. And a lot of times people will say, well, I don't really need to dress a certain way to protect someone else. That's not my problem. And
like I'm not responsible for your
eyes wandering at me. Well, I would say that's not super loving. Like, you know, and God is love. We are called to love others, and including like our brothers in Christ, and like, we're not going to be perfect at this, like, but, you know, trying to be cognizant. Okay, if I'm wearing my leggings, I try to, you know, maybe I can wear a longer shirt, somewhat longer shirt that can somewhat cover some of my areas. Or if I'm, you know, going to be wearing like a tank top, like, am I like revealing a lot? Like, there's just a lot. You just want to try to think of others a little bit.
And if you do, and I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
that's it.
And if you know in your heart that you're doing the best you can and somebody still lusts after you,
Yeah.
it's not your problem.
You're going to be, I mean, because there's going to be legalistic people.
Right.
And like, they're everywhere, and that's fine. But then there's also like that other side, like you were talking about, where it's just like, you do you, and like, do whatever you want. And like, Jesus calls us to follow him and love others well. He didn't come to be served, but to serve. And so if that is what we're trying, you know, we're trying to be his disciples and follow him, then by serving others, that also includes like how we dress for fitness related activities. And again, like, I'm not saying that I do this perfectly all the time, and I don't think anybody does. I'm not saying you have to wear like a full gown, sleeved gown to work out like that. Some people may feel convicted to do that. But, you know, you don't want to make up your own man-made rules to condemn other people.
Totally.
And at the same time, you don't want to just be like, you know, like I said, just I'm doing whatever I want because it doesn't matter. Because it does, people do matter. And you want to be a witness at the gym or outside or wherever.
Or on social media.
And if you're posting things to get likes and comments and all of that, I mean, it's really, you're almost like selling yourself to get business in a way. Because fitness on social media, from my husband's friends and things, like, they've had to stop using social media, especially Instagram, because it's almost like soft porn, like fitness accounts and stuff, just because you're like kind of naked and working out. And it's like, oh.
Well, that's exactly, you know, what I was saying. And it's very tough. And when it comes to, you know, what you're wearing, whether it's online or at the actual physical gym, I think context matters, and like who you know you're going to be around. Like
that's right.
I actually might dress with less clothing around a bunch of women if I knew I'm going to be about, you know, and
or your husband, you're like in your garage, like, I mean, there's just not like a one size fits all type situation, right?
And your walk with the Holy Spirit, it's changing, it's sanctification, and I feel more convicted now about stuff that I didn't before. There's a helicopter. I have no idea.
Hopefully it's not coming
from. No, we live close to the military base.
Oh, that's right.
It's just like always so loud. So no idea if they can hear that. But yeah, I look back on posts that even a few years ago that I might have done, and I'm like, I probably wouldn't have posted that angle or whatever, because I think I knew in the back of my mind then that like, oh, I might be able to pass it off as, you know, educational. You know, it's just as I've gotten older and have been walking with the Lord longer, I'm just convicted about different things. But I also, like I had mentioned, I don't want to hypersexualize myself. And sometimes I can do that too. And sometimes I'm like, am I overthinking this? You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
It's easy to be like,
too much.
Oh, like, you know, like, I don't want to be ashamed of the body that the Lord gave me either. And so,
and live in fear of making people, you know, I think it, like you said, it's a heart issue, and it's between really you and the Lord, right? Absolutely. Like me and the Lord, like, because I can portray to you that I'm being authentic and I'm being educational, when really my fitness post is about me wanting you to think that I am fit, I am acceptable to you, like you think that I have it all together. Like, what is the real root? And sometimes if we don't know, we can just ask God to reveal that to us, because he will, you know, he will, through the Holy Spirit, reveal like what our motives are, and then we can kind of check ourselves. So.
Oh, that's really good. What are some parting thoughts that you have for them?
Yeah.
And just some encouragement, because I don't want anybody to leave these conversations just feeling like I gave them a bunch of don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. You know, I want to be able to almost commission them to hear these things and go, okay, what do I do with it?
That's right. My biggest thought is just remembering whose you are and who you are. Meaning, you know, whose you are, like you were bought with a price, like God loves you so much that he sent Jesus for you. You are more valuable than anything in this world to God. Like he sacrificed his one and only son for you. And so nothing on social media could ever top that. There aren't enough likes, there aren't enough comments, there aren't enough follows that could ever even compare to the amount of love that God has for each of us. And then the second part of that, like, we are each fearfully and wonderfully made, and God's works are wonderful. And I pray that we would all know that very well. But like with that, the temptation to compare on social media is so hard for me and for everyone. I'm sure if you breathe, it's hard. Yeah. And so remembering, like, God knit me together in my mother's womb. He has a plan and a purpose for me, and that is going to be different than yours. The plan and purpose he has for your life, it's going to be different for every single person. And so I don't have to look like you or be doing exactly what you're doing and portraying on social media to be valuable, to be lovable, to be acceptable, because I'm already perfectly loved by God. And I think being on social media, whether it's in the fitness realm or any other, it can just be really tempting to feel less than. Yeah. And it's just not the truth. You know, like God loves us perfectly. So trying to monitor probably, you know, if you are struggling with that, maybe take a step back. That's what I have to do and say, okay. Or maybe you do have to mute somebody that you're comparing yourself to a lot. Doesn't mean you have to like unfollow them and not be their friend anymore, but maybe they're like, maybe you don't even know them and you're like, I don't know if I should look at their posts because I keep comparing myself to them. And just having some awareness, right? Like that would be the biggest thing. Yeah.
It's really good. I was trying not to sneeze.
No, do you need to?
No, I was.
I saw your eye.
They're like watering.
I was like, oh no.
No, I'm not crying.
No, I knew you weren't crying, but
it was good. It was good, as you had to say, but
it wasn't that bad.
I have a cold.
I thought you were about to sneeze
Oh
too.
my god. Hold on, let me
just get your touch. Okay.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Don't cut that part.
Yeah, I know I won't. That's good stuff. Yeah, it's hard trying to record your very first episode of your podcast ever and suddenly
get sick.
Yeah, man, I was like, how am I going to do this? But Jay Quill was my friend.
Yes.
All right, my final question for you, Camille, is how can people find you on social media?
Oh, sure.
And could you share how somebody could get involved in maybe your recovery group or anything like that?
Yeah, awesome. So my handle is at camille.murphy.training. So cheers. I mean, you need to find me.
That's fine.
It's a mouthful. And then that's probably the easiest way to contact me about anything fitness related. And then our eating disorder recovery ministry is called 139 Wellness, based off of Psalm 139. And so the easiest way to get connected with us there is going to our website, and that's 139wellness.org. And we have a way you can email us there, send us questions there. You can read about our recovery groups and just kind of what our ministry is all about. And it's really, it's for anyone who struggles with food, body image, or exercise. And right now we have a free group.
And is that mostly women? I mean, I'm assuming men don't, I shouldn't say that. But they probably don't struggle as often or in the same way that women do. So
it's different, but there are so many men that do have eating disorders. Yeah. As of now, we don't have a male leader to disciple men, so we are only serving adult women. But my prayer is that God will bring us a leader that is a male, because I know that there's a huge community of guys that really struggle in this way, and they don't have a lot of resources. And so I'm just praying God will provide that.
I love that. And do you have any other resources you would like to share? And if you can't think of them right now, I'd be happy to just, if I do show notes, I'm new to this.
Hey, yeah.
But if I do, I can put them there. But if you have any other ones you want to suggest right now.
Yeah. I mean, there's Anchored Hope virtual counseling that is really, really good. I do have some registered dietitian friends that I can also give you some info about. I know of some really good eating disorder facilities that some of my friends have gone to. And on the training side of things, I think just finding something that works for you is one of the biggest things. So if you want to work with the trainer, I could get you connected with different ones or, whatever. But there are so many options with fitness. It's just finding something that you like.
Totally. And not everything is like one size fits all. Like just because one trainer and you might not have the best experience, it's like finding a small group. It's like
so true.
You gotta find the right fit for you.
That's right. So. And that's all good. Sometimes it takes a little bit it can be the same with counselors. You might need to, but sometimes it just works out the first time. And so who knows, right? You just kind of leave your hands open and go with it. So.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story, and you were just such a wealth of wisdom.
Oh, wow. I don't know about that, but thank you for having me.
I just spit everywhere. Oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing.
I hope I didn't sit in front of your beautiful side.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't. I think it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see how everything, when I edit, how everything looks. I might be like, what was that in my teeth?
No,
we'll see.
Yeah, me too.
But all right. Well, thank you for being my very first guest.
I'm honored. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. I invite you to connect with us on our social media channels at Upside Down Influencer on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. Upside Down Influencer is produced by 514 Productions, music by Jason Cooper, and website by Metal Marketing.